What is up, everybody? Hello, welcome to my office hours. I'm Joe Garcia, DevOps security engineer, coming to you in full living 720p color, as Adam Chandler and YouTube has already pointed out to us. New platform, didn't set the proper settings, but you know what? 720p is better than no P, which could be where we're at right now. So today we're going to be answering questions from chat. So if you have them, go ahead and add them into the chat. I can highlight them just like I did here. Adam from YouTube, thanks for always keeping the snark alive. I'm going to be joined today by random guests coming in and out as they have time. I've already got one in the green room, kind of waiting for his introduction. Andrew Harris is from CyberArk's security services team. He's going to be joining me here today. He focuses mainly on Conjure, dealing with the automation and deployment in production environments of our products there. And then later on in the second hour, we'll be joined by Darren Kahn, who is my colleague, a DevOps security engineer as well, mainly focused on Northeast accounts. He's going to be joining me. We're going to be talking a little bit about automating Conjure, automating some other things, as well as in the second hour, we're going to be joined by Joe Strickland, solutions architect for CyberArk, very knowledgeable in the Skim and our API regarding the Skim server that CyberArk provides. So if you have any questions there, be sure to get them ready in your back pocket, and we'll get to those in the second hour. I can save them and hold on to them and keep them nice and clean for when Joe Strickland is available. But first, let me go ahead and bring on to the stream Andrew Harris from Security Services. What's up, Andrew?
Hey.
How are you doing?
New platform. Who dis? I like that. I like that immediately people are already like 720p. What is this?
Well,
what is this garbage?
Adam always hunts me down wherever I happen to be streaming or hanging out, and always likes to keep it real. So I definitely appreciate that. I would have never known that we were in 720p unless he would have said something about it. So I'll have to change that setting. Only way for me to set it at this point is to end the broadcast and restart it, and I'm not doing that because then people will freak out.
Maybe the next one. But I'm doing good, Joe. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I had an hour between meetings and this stream kicking off for me to run down the road and get a quick bite to eat at the little diner I like to go to. So my tummy's full. And so I don't get my Cubans from there. I'll just get any other sandwich from there. They have really good club sandwiches. I like a club sandwich. They put roast beef in it. Usually I'm used to like a ham and a turkey, cheese, and then bacon, right? And that's your club sandwich. But they add roast beef in, so no extra cost on that. I'll take that all day. It's actually pretty good, surprisingly enough.
That sounds good. I feel like if you get roast beef, it's got to be like rare. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So you are based on the West Coast, right? Do you mind?
No, I'm on the East Coast.
You're on the East Coast now?
Yeah,
you moved
on the East Coast. That's CyberArk. I'm in South Carolina, Charlotte.
I thought you were over on the West Coast.
No, it's just because I like Arizona sports teams. You always see me on internal calls with like silly hats and stuff like that. I'm like literally, I think I'm like an hour away from you.
Behind you, you even have like a Cardinals. There it is, Arizona. So I assume this whole time, look at me. I assume this whole time that you lived in Arizona.
You know what's funny? That actually adds so much context to our Publix conversation. You thought I was on the West Coast.
Yep. I was like,
there is no Publix
in Arizona.
I like the green screen or the green room. What'd you call it? The green room conversation that was going on about the Publix and the battle station conversation. Oh, this is good. This is the content. What everybody came here to see was like discovering that we're like an hour apart and talking about sandwiches.
Who knew? I gotta come up there and visit you now. It's beautiful up in North Carolina right now. My brother's up there, so well, that's good to know that you're on the East Coast. In chat, if you guys want to say hello to Andrew, go ahead and throw that in chat. I see questions already coming in. I'm kind of pinning them and getting them kind of prepared. Bilal from LinkedIn already threw up a question regarding AWS that we'll get to here in a couple minutes. So I just want to set some ground rules first now that we're together and hanging out here, and for the viewers out there that are watching the stream. So first and foremost, this is not a CyberArk sponsored office hours. So we're going to be super casual. We're going to be super fun. We're going to get to your questions. We're going to try to answer them to the best of our ability, but we're human, right? We don't have all the answers. There are no seed questions. There are no plants in the crowd. These are going to be just impromptu. Grab a question. We'll highlight it on the stream, and we're going to answer it for you. But you know what? That answer may be, sorry, you got to open up an enhancement request, or sorry, you're just going to need to put in a support case for that. We don't have the answers for you, but we'll try our best to help you out and guide you where you can go to get the best help as quick as possible. Now, because this also is not sponsored CyberArk office hours, this is totally a couple of CyberArk employees that really love the product and want to help out the community. We're not going to be talking about anything roadmap. If it doesn't exist today in our marketplace or as one of our products that are currently GA today, we're not going to go there. We're also not going to talk about any financial information regarding the company, but any automation related questions that you have, whether it deals with the PaaS API, with how to create and engineer solutions across all of our different products in the platform, if it has to do with secrets management, integrating with other solutions, C-Cubed Alliance integrations, anything like that, CyberArk related is great. We're happy to spitball, throw up some topics, have some comments and questions. We'll try to get as many answered as we can in the 2-hour time frame that we have. I've already spent about 5 minutes of it, though, just kind of setting everything up. So with
the sandwich talk was real important.
Well, we've got to fill in some time here while we get the questions going and stuff. But they're definitely coming in. We've got Vivek in the audience out there watching us on YouTube. What's up, Vivek? Hello.
Hey, I recognize Vivek.
Yeah, he's very active in the Slack channel that the community hangs out in with our customer success team, and likes to ask and answer questions out there for everyone. But a great, maybe he's on Reddit. I don't know that many people know that we have a subreddit out there, our CyberArk, that can be checked out. So looks like Rob Cobbins is out there in the crowd too, an old CyberArker who just can't let us go, wanting to always be.
Always Rob, I like that. What's up, Rob?
Free roast beef. So we'll get to your questions and everything here. Just make sure that you keep putting them in the chat. Right now, we are live on LinkedIn Live. We're on YouTube Live, as well as on Twitch. So definitely start adding those questions to chat, and we'll kind of ask you questions in chat too. So be prepared with your 1s and 2s as we give you different options for questions we may have, as well as, if you happen to know the answer to a question that we're covering on these office hours, feel free to answer it in the chat as well. Like, we don't know everything. We don't pretend to know everything. We've got a lot of experience. How long have you been with CyberArk now, Andrew? How many years?
It feels like a long time, but I think it's almost 3 years. I think I just hit 2 years.
So almost 3, but definitely 2. Where did you come from before? Were you a customer, or did you come from like another vendor or something like that?
No, I actually came from Charter. I had never heard of CyberArk. It was actually kind of a funny story of like, I don't know if I should tell this story, but like when I heard about CyberArk, the first thing that came to mind was Initech from Office Space. For some reason, like it flew into my head. It just had one of those names, and I was like, CyberArk, what's CyberArk? So then you come over and get into the culture and stuff, and you're like, oh, it's kind of like one of those little secrets that you've never heard about. That's like a pretty fantastic place to work, coming from like really, really large IT organization, spaces, and going from like, it was quite an experience going from like, I think like 300, I think we're at like 310,000 employees when I left Charter to like just like 2,000, 2,500, something like that. So it was kind of like a big culture shock for me of like not having 40 managers to like give me it's funny, as Charter is more like Office Space than CyberArk is, but the name made me think of Office Space for some reason.
Yeah.
So I'm just really excited to be here and part of the team. Like it's a much better place to be, and a great opportunity. So I want to say it's one of those weird things. I started right at the first week of the pandemic where everything was locked down. So
yeah. You're a pandemic employee, huh?
Yes,
Wait,
like
you
the
haven't
week that it was shut down.
or events or anything like that yet, have you? Have you been to an event yet, like an in-person event, like Impact or anything like that?
No, I did the last Impact, I signed up for a bunch of stuff that I wanted to see, and then they had this Chris Smith put together that brain date thing. And I was like, oh, we could just do brain dates. So I just spent the whole time like connecting with customers and answering questions and like going through Conjure, secrets management platform, rotational stuff like that. So I don't know if I'm gonna be at the Impact this year. I know that there was some talk about automation and platforms and Conjure and some of those use cases for
Yeah.
the current Impact. So I don't know if any of that's gone through just yet.
So I've got some good news for you. Someone who we miss very dearly is actually on the stream right now, who may even be able to help us out from afar through the YouTube stream chat. If anybody's out there on YouTube asking questions, it's good old Ben Floyd. He's back and checking us out there on YouTube, watching us live. So Ben Floyd is a great resource of Conjure knowledge, along with Andrew here with me. He's lurking in the stream chat out there on YouTube. So hey Ben, it's good to see you. And well, I think I actually you
My
gave
good buddy Ben.
so I started there for you. But just a little background on me. I've actually been involved with CyberArk to one degree or another for a decade. Can you believe that? I've been dealing with this for a decade. So 4 years I was a customer of CyberArk. It was
Plains the gray.
that's where it all came from, being a customer. No, but no, like it was one of many things that I did, at my previous employer. And then through just my dealings with customer success, surprisingly enough, I realized that, hey, you know what? I'm really good at this CyberArk thing. I'm really good at security. I enjoy it. Let me see if I can get in. And got hired on to the customer success team back in 2016, which doesn't seem that far away, but really is now, when you really put it in perspective with the fact we're in 2022.
The cool thing about working at CyberArk is the potential impact that you can bring to so many different audiences. Because you look back and you're like, 2 years doesn't feel like 2 years. It feels like 20 years with the amount of scope and impact and exposure that you really do get. It's a great place to. I feel like I work in human resources, and this is like a hiring campaign. Like we're touring college of like, come work for us. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of great stuff coming down the pipeline that I'm not going to get into, but I think that it will open up a lot of opportunities for people who want to, hang out with the cool kids, I guess, so to speak. But
I do have one comment from a colleague. Gary Moon really likes your shirt.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Gary. My favorite part about this shirt is actually if I come up a bit, look at the password. It's Empire 123. We completely are throwing shade at SolarWinds 123 and the supply chain breach that happened a couple years ago. And so I've been doing a lot of work around securing the supply chain. That'll be coming out here as time goes on, regarding all our different products and stuff in the platform. And so it comes up a lot when I'm talking about securing the supply chain. And I noticed that when I was looking in the mirror and I put on the shirt this morning. So definitely my favorite shirt. Do you have a favorite shirt? Do you have any CyberArk shirts? Does anybody give you shirts?
I got this one.
Oh, that one. Cool. I haven't seen that one before.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. I think it's
a
cool.
New one? Did you get that recently?
Yeah, it was when I was up in Boston for the first time for that big summit like a month ago.
Oh, okay. That must be the shirt that Mark Herter is holding on to for me.
Yeah, probably. I think they were giving it to everybody. I want that one though. That one looks neat.
Yeah, I really like the art. So the art actually was done by the same person. Let me see if I can get my finger pointing right. The same person did this art piece back here. Ty Paulhouse, who is the designer of all of the different header images on the Conjure blog. Actually, when we acquired Conjure, he came over to the company and did some design work for us as a part of that Conjure acquisition, until he moved on and he opened up his own art studio now. So I was able to snag that painting behind me. It does amazing stuff. The Ship It sticker that I always pass out anytime we have in-person events and stuff. He does
Orson Welles
sticker with Orson Welles. Yeah.
Drunk arsenals.
The Conjure all-seeing eye with the secrets floating around it. That one was his design as well. So very talented artist in Boston. I like to support him, so I got his stuff everywhere and love his artwork too. This is one of them. So thanks, Gary. Just a quick shout out to everyone on LinkedIn Live right now. We do have a couple people out there. Whoops, wrong one. A couple people out there right now that are looking for the Slack channel details. So if you are a member of our community-based customer success Slack channel and you have access to that, if you could please copy an invite link from that server, drop it in the LinkedIn stream chat so that all of the people who have been asking for those Slack channel details can get it. That'd be great. I would do it, but I can't chat from this platform with LinkedIn Live, only with YouTube and with Twitch. So any help from the community out there would be greatly appreciated. So let's actually start to let's finish up the conversation around CyberArk merchandise, because we've got a lot of people out there who are asking,
yes, important.
Their merchandise. Yes, there's merchandise. Well, okay, then how do we get that merchandise? That's a great question. So the one thing that's changing this year is the fact that everything's going in person again at conferences. And that's really the biggest way of getting the swag is to come to our booth at different conferences. We're going to be at all the AWS summits around the country. We're going to be at AWS Reinforce, Red Hat summits going on right now. We'll be at DevOps World, which is in Orlando, my backyard. I'm out of Tampa, so it's just a quick hop over I-4. I'll be at DevOps World in Orlando this year. We're doing AWS reInvent as well. All the KubeCons, EMEA and America's KubeCons we're going to be at. We'll have swag at all those places, t-shirts, whatever else they've got. I've only really ever seen t-shirts. We may have stickers. Sometimes we carry around stickers. I typically keep stickers with me that I just pass out randomly. We've also got CyberArk Impact mid-July, second week of July. That's going to be happening in Boston this year. It is back in person, also available virtually. But if you are in person, we'll have swag there. Our CyberArk Champions team will be there as well for our different champions to hang out. We'll have meetups. It'll be a lot of fun. I'll be in the Discovery Center. That's back again with our different booths for people to hang out, have a happy hour, and have fun. Just no happy hour for Joe anymore.
So here's a question that I'm going to ask for Rob, since I know Rob was asking about it. When does the CyberArk official roast beef come out?
I don't know. I don't know. Rob took that information with him to his new company, I think. All the roast beef left with Rob. So that's where you can get your swag. Otherwise, we're going to start doing, I've been seeing a lot of activity around regional based customer meetups. So those are starting back in person again. Depending on your region, you'll want to reach out to your assigned salesperson, and they'll have the details on when those dates are. I know I'm in the Southeast region, so I see it from the Southeast region's perspective, and we've got about 3 across the Southeast region that we're doing. And they typically map to like from us, it's like Florida, Atlanta, you have to do like the big city, and then typically somewhere around North Carolina will be the third one. But the same idea works across the board for the Americas and Canada and stuff. So those are starting to happen. They'll be going on throughout the end of the year. You'll have a lot of opportunities to get swag. So don't be sad if you don't have my awesome t-shirt or Andrew's awesome t-shirt, Fearlessly Forward. There's another one too, Securing Your Success. And it's like a thumbprint because, hey, newsflash, we do identity now. A lot of people seem to forget that. So we've got shirts for all the different things.
There's the fishing one too. I like the fishing one a lot.
Oh, there's a fishing one? I haven't seen that one. I need that fishing shirt. I got fishing stuff all over the place somewhere around here. Oh, it's all off camera. It doesn't matter. So Sack in the LinkedIn chat pulling through for us has the URL for the Slack group for CyberArk customers. It's cyberarkgroup.slack.com. I didn't realize it was that easy. So you can go there. It's an open community. Customer success lurks there. Some security services people lurks there. I lurk there. There's a technical area for everyone to answer your questions. There's a technical Conjure section. You can drop memes in the random channel. It's a normal Slack channel, just like everyone else seems to have nowadays. So check it out. Go out there, cyberarkgroup.slack.com. So let's start taking a look at some of these questions that I have saved here. I've been trying to save them and star them as they've been coming in, but we've had a lot of activity across all the platforms so far. So let's see. I'm just going to scroll up real quick and make sure that we have them all. Let's start off with some easy ones, and then we'll kind of warm up with those, okay? And then we'll get to some of the more harder ones. So it basically it's a 50-50 mix, it looks like. Some of them are like really easy questions that they just want to know, like, do you support this? And then the other ones are like, I need to engineer a solution for this, and it's going to take a while to really discuss and talk about the topic. So let's start super easy first. We're going to start with the central credential provider. Do you have experience with that, Andrew? I imagine so.
A little bit.
All right. Our question from LinkedIn chat. Can application hash and certificate authentication be used with the CCP? Now, the central credential provider is the name of the acronym CCP. And so your answer for this question is a simple no and yes. No,
that was easy.
Hash can't be used with the CCP because what the CCP is our Windows credential provider, the agent-based credential provider installed on a centralized server where we add and install a web service into IIS on top of that so that your applications can communicate to that agent-based credential provider through a REST API endpoint. So in order for us to be able to grab that application hash, we would need local access to the environment the application is living on. And that's not information that comes across in a request over the network that the application would make to the central credential provider. So if your application is living on the same server that the CCP is hosted from, you can just hit the Windows credential provider and use hash authentication, sure, because we're just using the agent-based local environment. But that hash isn't going to come over with the network request through a GET request to the API. So unfortunately, hash is not supported. Certificate authentication, though, on the other hand, is. Because you would basically send your GET request and provide the client certificate key and certificate itself for authentication through IIS in order to just hit the web service itself. And then we would do either a certificate serial number validation. So we take a look at the thumbprint of the certificate and make sure it matches up what we have in the Pvwa. Or you can choose attributes of the client certificate. So, say that you want the CN to match this, you want this other attribute to match a particular value. We can do attributes as well. It's not very evident when you look at how to configure an application ID in our solution, but there is documentation that explains how to do that. So that is the answer to that question. That was an easy setup. I kind of took that and ran with it. Anything else you want to add in there, though, Andrew? No?
Only to play devil's advocate on anything, but it wouldn't really add value. It would just more or less try to derail and live in that realm that I like to live in of just, what can you do? Testing the outer boundaries.
Thank you, Rob. Rob nailed it. Subject alternate names. So the different SANs and stuff like that can be attributes that you are basically validating exist, right? The application identity in our solution will include that information for trust. You can get a good deep dive look in how I configured client certificate authentication with my lab's central credential provider by going to youtube.com/infamous Joe G. And it's one of my popular videos listed on my channel. And you can watch that complete setup end to end. I use a user-based client certificate, but you can do it for like machine accounts and things like that too. So go take a look at that. It's out on YouTube, and you'll be pretty dangerous there. Looks like Gary listened to you when you called him out and came on in We forced him to sign in. So Gary's here. Gary is infrastructure for Conjure on the R&D side of the house, and does a lot of great magic and automation with our Conjure Secrets Manager for us internally, right? We are his customers, and he manages the infrastructure that we use since we eat our own dog food here. So thanks for joining us, Gary. All right, let's take a look and see what else we've got here. Let's pick something that Andrew can answer. Let's do a good.
Oh, no. The derailment has begun.
So it's kind of a setup here, but I'm gonna do it. So
great. I don't see anything going on. Like my experience is I'm just sitting here blindly trusting that Joe's not walking me into.
No, anything. Yeah. So Ben Floyd.
Oh, and of course it's a Ben Floyd question. Great. Great.
So here's the question. Are you ready? Failure testing secrets management solutions. After making the solutions work a few use cases, what are some ways people can plan and automatically test for and respond to failure? Go.
Geez. So failure testing and secrets management solutions. So I guess from the application architecture standpoint, it's really interacting with the Conjure APIs to look for rotations, reading the resources endpoint to test for rotations. That's kind of where I would lean. The first place is if your credentials rotating, typically the failures that I see working in customer environments is in that rotation space. So building the application around testing for specifically rotations and then replaying those rotations and monitoring kind of the secrets version on that piece. Not looking at the index of the array. I know that might be very, very specific, but you get an array of versions. It only goes to like a maximum of 20, I think. So testing around that, testing those credentials and seeing if that connectivity exists. Obviously, when secrets management failures there's a lot of different terms that comes into play of, do you query the service and the service is not there? Obviously, that's an outage. Do you query it and you get a stale credential? What is the context of that outage? So it's of course I figured Ben was going to come in here and cause trouble when I told him about the stream, but I would look at the architecture of the application, make sure that we're testing and pulling for the correct version of the credential, the most recent version of the credential, so that way you can recover, and then going into the application to say, what is the failure logic in, we received a rotation, how do we restart services gracefully or bring services down gracefully and bring them back up gracefully without having to restart the whole process. Kubernetes comes to mind because they have a common flow is, oh, it rotated, let me recycle my pod. We don't really need to live in that world anymore of recycling the pod, especially if you're looking at an application that takes 6-7 minutes from a pod standpoint to come up. If you're in your financial or healthcare industry, that's really common startup time for pods in Kubernetes. So that I always think of, well, if I query for my medical records and it takes 6 to 7 minutes to respond, that's pretty unacceptable for me. So I want to look at where I can build that fault tolerance in the application. And Conjure has a really good set of APIs that you can read that from. Unfortunately, it gets into that conversation that not a lot of developers want to talk about, which is code changes. I'm a firm believer of pushing out code changes and going through that perspective, solely because it gives you the power to recover gracefully if there is a failure to some degree, mostly around rotation. Obviously, for an application, you should have a elevated exit code if you're querying for a service and it's down, or you get a stale credential and it didn't increment in versions. Obviously, there's a bigger disconnect there.
Nice. That was a very thorough answer.
Was it? Thank you. That was for not coming prepared. I figured Ben Floyd. What's going to happen is, Joe, just so you know, because I've worked with Ben a long time and we're really good friends. He's going to come up with a question that is going to be very difficult to answer soon. That was his softball.
Yes. I imagine it will be within the realm of
my answer.
JSON web tokens or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So let's take a look at some of these. We got a lot of questions to go through here. So this is great. I'm gonna kind of pivot to. So this is probably one that we can kind of discuss. So Tabiso on YouTube asked this question: is an EPV user Conjure license required for CyberArk paths to be integrated with Conjure within the core paths vault? So I assume that he's talking in regards to our synchronizer service that synchronizes secrets that are stored in our enterprise password vault with Conjure and keeps them in sync. It's a good question. It's one that isn't really, prevalent when you go looking for information through our integrations documentation of the Conjure docs and stuff. And I can't speak to pricing or anything like that. Like, pricing is going to be up to the sales guy, the account executive, and things like that, and their relationship and whatever has been dealt with your company. But my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you do this a little bit more than me, although you're probably just given a license file that you can work with already and not really having to deal with scoping the license out. But I'm pretty sure it only really needs an
app
provider license. Yeah. So similar to our credential providers, how they create a PROV_user for the host that the credential provider is installed onto, that consumes an app provider license. We do
There's actually some more context there. So you have an app provider for the synchronizer host that goes through and is in the intermediary, user, and then you have one for each line of business user. So if you want to go out to the full 10 line of business users, it's an app provider for each.
Our synchronizer service supports up to 5 LOBs right now, lines of business users.
10.
Oh, 10? It's 10?
Yeah.
Is it? I thought it was 5. Man, I am so out of date with this then, if that's the case. So 10.
It's been 10 for a while, so I don't know when that was, but it's been 10 for a minute.
11 app provider users, but I think that's kind of included with the package that you purchase. I don't know. I don't want to make any guesses here as to how the pricing works. Up to 11 app provider users, depending on how many lines of business you want to use. And then the one extra for the synchronizer to be able to authenticate, and then check out what safes have the line of business user so it knows what to synchronize. So there's your answer. 11 app providers, EPV users are not used for Conjure.
A minimum of 2, I want to say, for the lowest end, and then 11 for the maximum capability that you can do. Yeah.
So looks like Ben's already helping us out by answering questions in the YouTube chat. So that's perfect. We're gonna get to skip all of those. But no, let's start from the top now and go from LinkedIn. One of the first questions that we got on LinkedIn back when we first started, what I guess this would be kind of like, we're not AWS security professionals. I'm not employed by AWS, neither is Andrew. I definitely run a lab for the past few years in AWS, so I understand it. So I wouldn't call these best practices as much as suggestions to look into further. I don't want to say, like, get into some sort of trouble here and say, well, Joe said on his office hours that this is how microservices are secured within AWS. And I honestly really feel like it just depends on what service in AWS out of the hundreds that are available those microservices are going to be hosted within, because there's so many different options, right?
I took it as kind of like the holistic approach to it, and like getting out of, like, because there's the commonalities of like the buzzwords that you get into, like don't have your secrets in source code, S3 buckets, et cetera, et cetera. But I think for securing, like in workloads or in microservices in AWS, it's really, you want to, I always like to take the approach of what can I change, and that change is rotation. And like just putting it in realms of Conjure, you have a really strong use case for like Auth and IAM, or really what I would prefer you to go to would be Auth and JWT, and using the JWT OIDC provider that AWS has for you. Right. So you can get really specific with it and standardize across all the services in AWS. But like Joe, disclaimer, I don't want to be like, yeah, this is how you should do it. I've been personally labbing in AWS for like 9 years or so now. So I probably a little bit longer than that. I can't really remember. But I would look at it that approach of building an infrastructure, architecting an application where you can rotate without an outage. If you can rotate and recover from an outage, you're probably in the right direction, because then you're preventatively you're building resilience into your application. You're architecting around that rotation. So if there is a change, you're securing it because you can drive a rotation into it, right? And then just standard roll RBAC ACLing and all the the fun buzzwords of least privilege and least astonishment, all the goodies from there, right? Just keeping it small, having lots of things that have access to one or two things is much better than having one thing that accesses a lot of things.
Right. Yeah. The one thing that I've definitely learned over my 3 years of keeping my AWS lab up and running has been, start with no public network access and scope directly to IPs whenever possible. The only times that I've ever really ran into an issue with doing that is when I'm trying to use CI, right? Continuous improvement in third parties. I'm talking about GitHub Actions, GitLab CI. What else? At one point when it was not breached, there was what's the other one? Travis CI, right? Was another one. Azure DevOps pipelines is another one. I run all of these demos and secure secrets, and I want it to hit my environment, but I don't want to have to at the same time publicly expose my environment, because all of those runners that those platforms I just named use are cloud-based runners, which means I can't predict the IP address they're going to be using when they spin up and execute. And even if I tried to, the list of dynamic IP addresses it pulls from in the pool is rotating on a weekly basis. So I basically would have to every week be adjusting my security groups in AWS for that network access. What they do what they do though is they do provide the means of what's considered a self-hosted runner. So that allows you to install the runner within the network next to, whatever tools you need to integrate with. And then instead of having to open up all of these different IP ports, now you've created an outbound connection back to that service that can be utilized instead. So it'll start polling at an interval. And this is really why I love our credential providers, because they use that same type of architecture and network communication. They don't wait for the vault to try to come in and trigger them at all. They're on their own interval, reaching out over outgoing traffic to the vault or to wherever to see, is it time for me to refresh this credential? No. Okay, then fine, break the connection. I don't care.
For me, I like when I look at the credential provider, and I think it does have really strong use cases in that pipeline. But I look at it; it's very difficult, because when I approach like a problem like that, I look at scaling it from 5 applications to 15 applications to 50 to 5,000 to 50,000. And if I can find a common solution, maybe it doesn't solve 100% of the use cases, but if I can solve 60 to 70% of the use cases, that's a huge win, right? Hell, if I can solve 20, 25%, I think that's phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
But if I can go through and solve majority of the use cases with a practice that says rotation and CCP and all that, cloud is very tricky because you can have your own custom CIDR ranges. So SourceNet addressing isn't as immutable as it once was even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon to have IP collisions now in cloud spaces. So it's tricky, and that's why I like that, kind of like what CCP does, what some of the Conjure authenticator mechanisms, how they kind of work and do less like source of authority information from like a subnet and doing like a /32, getting out of that subnet identification and having more of like a trusted platform conversation, I think is really a really strong place to go with the best practice.
Yeah, and that the microservices need to communicate with each other too. So there's going to be a lot of service to service authentication going on as they need to request, information and things like that from each other. And Conjure's authenticator for AWS IAM roles is really the route that I would end up going at the end of the day, because you're utilizing the internal metadata service that's provided to EC2 instances, that's provided to AWS Lambda functions, that's provided to ECS, even the Elastic Container Service. I was able to do a POC on that just the other day, where I deployed an ECS cluster onto Fargate, and then deployed a task definition, and then was able to use the role that was assigned to my task definition in order to authenticate to Conjure and grab secrets. I didn't need a username and password. I didn't need a token at all. It was just the role assigned to my resource, which is how that should work. Utilizing the attribute and the environment that's available to you is really CyberArk's, cup of tea, right? Like that's what we
Bread
do.
and butter all day. Let's go.
Bread and butter, no, yeah,
Roast beef.
so
all the things.
that's how you can securely get secrets just in time. And then from there, there's a whole slew of AWS, the other security practices that need to go into place to secure your microservices. But hopefully that answered your question, Bilal, out there on LinkedIn chat. And we appreciate that question. So moving on, let's take a look at another question here. We've already answered this one. We've answered the license requirements for the synchronizer. I'm just cleaning up a bit here. Okay, let's see. This is a good one for you, because I don't think I know the answer right off the top of my mind. This one came from YouTube, from Vivek. Is there a better way to generate reports directly from Conjure instead of reading the audit.log or reading from a solution like Splunk? So I guess that would be consuming syslog into Splunk from Conjure.
Yeah, that's a conversation that I hope we do have some stuff for the future, which obviously isn't really the purpose for today's call. But unfortunately, right now, really that we have to rely on kind of our SIM, stuff like Splunk and building dashboards around that. We've done a lot of improvements over the last couple of years to try to shore up that logging information, but we don't have like a unified way to pull that information out of it. So it's really just creatively going through and building out Splunk dashboards. I've seen some really creative things in customer environments and like sumo logic and referencing the JSON objects like that. There are ways that you can do it, but it'd really be out of scope for kind of today's call, because it's definitely out of the realm of like strict documentation. And I think that we've done a lot of enhancement requests to kind of build some of that space up. But the audit log is really the best way to do it right now, and go through it that way and build kind of like an RBAC and ACL model off of that inside of Splunk, so that way folks can see their correct stuff in their dashboards.
So there is another way that's coming down the pipeline, which I can talk about. I can't show you. I don't think I can show you. It's pretty early anyways. I don't think you would want to see it, but we are at Impact going to be announcing our new Conjure Cloud. So Conjure is not only going to be self-hosted anymore, but it's going to be a SaaS-based version as well. That will directly tie in with Privilege Cloud. The synchronization will just work in the background, because all our SaaS products will be running off of a shared services platform. And what I got access to as I've been testing out Conjure Cloud and just kind of checking out how the JWT authentication works there and things like that, is there is now an Audit Ui service within our SaaS platform that consumes all of the audit data from all of the shared services and presents it to you in a centralized dashboard. As of right now, I don't see any sort of like reporting functionality being provided there. Then again, it's very super early access for me. But my hopes and dreams, and I'm not making any clear-cut statements here, but my hopes and dreams would be that this service would flourish and eventually support a lot of the things that people have been asking for. it's crazy that this question comes up in regards to Conjure, but I've been getting this question in many various forms since Impact 2019, when I had a talk with my colleague at the time, James Creamer, on automating onboarding of accounts using Ansible and the REST API and all this other stuff. We got to the Q&A portion, the final 10 minutes of the talk. Every hand that went up had a question about how they can automate reports through the REST API, or how they can automate reports this way. And if there was a wish list of things that I could make, 3 things, right, that I could just give over for 2022, what I would love to see. At the top of that list, just given all the questions I've taken through 2019, through my office hours that I did back in 2020, and up till now, it would be, automating reporting, or coming up with we have a management API, right? That we've got that works with PAM, it works with Conjure, things like that. Let's talk about a reporting API. Let's have that conversation and see what we can do there, because, audit and compliance is real. And especially with cybersecurity insurance and the way that you need to report in order to keep your insurance active, having a way of being able to report these, successes and wins through security utilizing our product, I think would be huge. So your voice has been heard by me, and I am definitely echoing that voice internally throughout CyberArk, and really pushing the effort and the eyes to go that way. So hang out, and we're really doing a lot of cool stuff in the cloud, and I think we'll see it there first, and then eventually it'll trickle down into the self-hosted realm.
There is an open source project for the Swagger UI.
Wait, for Conjure?
For Conjure. And also what I will say, I'm not going to comment any further on that, other than there's a Swagger open source UI project out there.
Oh, I'll comment.
That has some very interesting things.
I will comment further than that. I will gladly.
I'll leave that to you.
So here is the project that he's talking about. This is the Conjure Open API spec. This is amazing. So basically, what this is equivalent to the Postman collections that I manage. So you guys will go out to Postman. You'll see that I've documented all of the endpoints for the PaaS REST API, for the Conjure API, for all these different APIs. And you'll consume it by clicking, run collection in the upper right-hand corner. It'll open up the Postman API client and kind of bring it in. This is the specification that builds the framework for REST APIs, the Swagger type Open API specification. This is a V3, Open API V3 specification for Conjure's REST API. You can go to docs.conjure.org or docs.cyberark.org and look at the REST API documentation that's there, but to fully understand what's inside the REST API itself, this is going to be the ticket. And so all of the REST API endpoints are listed here because this is what converts over and builds the API web service within the Conjure product itself. It has to be documented here to become fully available inside of the Conjure REST API. And there's a lot of great README information here. It's a community certified level. So if there's any issues and stuff, it'll be community contributed support. It's not going to be like certified or anything like that, where you can open up a support ticket, but issues, are supported up here. And you can see there's a couple already, probably just cleaning things up and stuff, because I use this and it's great. Me and APIs, I love my REST APIs. But there's a getting started section here that you can check out. You can build this into a collection that you can then import into Postman, or you can just have it open up into Swagger. And then from there, you can start to create client libraries for really any programming language that's out there. It's ridiculous how many programming languages this supports. And so you can go and choose Lisp, if you want to choose Lisp for whatever reason, or Haskell, or some weird language that
Throw it in Perl. It's
we
fine.
don't necessarily have hosted on our website as an available client library. You can run this open API spec. It'll build all of the assets it needs, give you a cool menu drop down, and then you can choose your language and it'll create a client library you can then import into your applications projects and start using. So very cool, very well thought out. README here. Here's where you generate the clients right here, right? That's it. You run this script, give the language and the output directory for where you want to go, and you're good to go. We also have examples too for how to do random things. So check this out. It is CyberArk /Conjure open API spec. It is public repository. Go out there, star it, take a look at it, explore it. Apparently, there's some hidden Easter eggs in there that Andrew.
I didn't say anything. All I said is there's interesting stuff.
I know there is hidden Easter eggs in here because my Cyber CLI project that has some Conjure commands in it utilizes one of the API endpoints documented in here, but not in our documentation, in order to enable authenticators through the API. So you can just give the authenticator service ID, and then I'll use the undocumented API endpoint to enable that for you. You don't have to restart services or anything like that.
The other powerful thing that putting something like this together gives you is, from a security standpoint, we're not developers, but we can at least meet halfway, because development teams have a very close partnership now with business. And we're kind of, from a security standpoint, we're a lot of the times the third wheel. And while we can be heavy-handed with users, we can't be heavy-handed with development shops. So we can come in and kind of like, meet a little bit, do a little professional development, understand a little bit. We don't need to write or rewrite an application, but we can come through and scaffold it and assist in doing some of these pieces to kind of help our consumers of secrets management platforms. I wish they would do this for the PAS API, because I think this is probably one of my favorite projects that when I learned about, this really took a lot of my own personal stuff, my own personal initiatives at CyberArk. So this is what I use.
I wish they would do it for the PAS API too. However, I understand why they won't. And the reason for that, I will tell you. I don't care.
Okay.
It's not like some secret squirrel stuff. The reason for that is because a lot of the API endpoints that we end up using that aren't publicly documented are still released in versions just undocumented because they're in this QA phase. We're not necessarily ready to officially support them yet, but we are ready to utilize them and see how they work out with certain UI elements, because in the newer versions, we write the API first and then we write the UI elements against the API. And then depending on, that and how things work out in testing and stuff like that, is whether, we support it fully. So for example, if you go to log into the Password Vault web access, if you're a federal region, you need to use a PIV or a CAC card, they call it. It's basically PKI type authentication. And that has a tile that you can add to the logon portion of the Pvwa. But if you go into our documentation for the REST API, it's not documented anywhere. Not that the endpoint doesn't exist, it's just not documented in our documentation. But it exists, and it actually exists in my Postman documentation. So if you're interested in using that for human-based, right, REST API access, then you can use PKI or PKIPN. That's listed in Postman. cybr.rocks/REST API will get you there. But that's just like an example of one thing, that's there, not documented on our website, but doesn't mean that it doesn't work and it's not utilized a lot by our UI and stuff like that. So, and I think that really, the idea behind the REST API and what is documented for the REST API is that we look at it as a management API. Only automation should be using the REST API. But what's been happening as people have been moving towards the cloud and towards these more, DevOpsy self-service models, right? I think that's really what DevOps is at the end of the day. You know, you're allowing developers and others to be self-service consumers of many different services, and not getting in the way of their agility. We found that now, you know, these portals are being created that require human-based authentication, like PKI, like OIDC, like all of these other methods that we have out there. And our API was really just focused on only dealing with automation type authentications. Whereas now we're seeing a need for more human based authentications. We're seeing a lot more SAML authentication. We're seeing a lot more, of those types of authentication being necessary. And so it just takes a little vision change and a little understanding of that's where a lot of the customers are going nowadays. You know, they're looking for that self-service model. And they want to build it themselves. They've got a lot of talent in their companies a lot of times to do that.
And it's okay to be uncomfortable, or it's okay to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially in that space, because there's always something new, always something changing. But that I'm a huge fan of that Swagger project, or the Open API project. That was an incredible.
You know, if all else fails, you've always got your good friend Joe Garcia out here that you can go to my repositories and search for Postman. And then you have the CyberArk REST API public here. As you can see, I forked this Postman to Open API. So you can see where I'm going with this.
Does that say Rust?
What? Oh, where? Oh, yeah, they built it in Rust. Yeah, good for them, huh? But yeah, so here we have individual collections that you can go and you can get if you're looking for just EPM or just the identity REST API. But OAS3 is the folder you're looking for. And these are those Open API Spec 3 YAML files that are perfect for loading right up into your different API gateways. That's really what these are perfect for. Most API gateways, Kong, Apogee, MuleSoft, they will consume and import this YAML file, understand the endpoints that are available, and start to be able to apply RBAC and their different security controls and monitoring to those endpoints. And you can map them and change them and whatever, you know, the usual API gateway stuff. But there was a customer who reached out to me for these specifically. And I was like, you know what? You're not going to be the only customer that needs them. So they are here. They haven't been updated in, a couple years, but happy to update them if anybody needs them. Nobody's really complained. I'll even turn on issues here in case you need me to update them. Just go ahead and complete an issue and it'll alert me. So now there's an issues tab at the top. Just open up a new issue here. Let me know that you want them, and I'll go ahead and I'll recreate them. Otherwise, I'm not going to pay them much mind. So cool stuff.
I think a lot of folks aren't quite there yet. I think that we'll start seeing that over the next, as like security and development kind of start becoming more of a partnership instead of kind of like, the heavy-handed approach that's traditionally been applied. I think it's just a matter of time before a lot more concepts like that will start getting the ground running, and runtime library generation will be interesting.
Yeah, I do want to get to a question from Todd Sherwin from back at almost an hour ago. I don't know if he's still out there, but we'll get to your question next. I just want to kind of wrap up with one final question regarding the API, since we're on the topic. The question that always comes up on every REST API office hours I've ever had in my life, including apparently this one now, is when will all the V1 APIs be converted to V2? I think we're about there, honestly. I don't know really what's missing from the V1 side that's not in V2. I believe it's just applications at this point. And I know that is being looked into and worked on internally. I can't give a date or timeline as to when the applications API endpoints will be updated for V2. That's for dealing with application identity, automating that application identity, and the authentication methods associated with it. There was a question about linked accounts in here. Linked accounts do work. So I think that you just basically have to use, if I were to go to Postman here at cybr.rocks, /REST API. It sounds like they don't work, however they do. So when you are are looking at the accounts here, let me go ahead and change our view. So when you're looking at the accounts here, and I'll blow this up a bit so that, oh, that's actually the wrong browser. I need to focus on my browser here. So when you're looking in the accounts, you have discovered accounts here. Oh, well, there's linked accounts right there. So it's on a newer version, link an account. But if you're talking about like dependencies, that's kind of where I was going with this. The service usages, I think they're called, or like you have a master account and then you link on like, I need to update this Windows service too, and you want to onboard that information. Adding discovered accounts has been updated and it supports that now. So you can just use the add discovered accounts endpoint here. And as long as that account already exists within your enterprise password vault, it will then just add that quote unquote discovered dependency onto that account straight away. You won't have to worry about, adding the account into the pending accounts and then dealing with it that way, which is the true purpose behind the add discovered accounts. But if that account has already been onboarded and you discover a dependency, it'll just go ahead and add it to that master account. And then for linked accounts, you have your own link an account section here. And then finally, just to kind of solve one last question, there was someone who wanted to see through curl. Oh, it's Tabiso again. He wanted to see through curl a short demo of how to use the REST API with curl. And so that's easy. I can demo that for you right now. We're going to
using command prompt, Windows command prompt. So you'd have to specify that.
I don't care if it's in the command prompt or not. All you got to do is just change over to curl from this drop down here. And we start to get what we're going to be putting into curl on the terminal, on the command prompt, or anything.
My favorite thing about Postman, just to kind of in general, is that code feature inside of, like, I use the local client. The code feature is one of the best things about Postman. It's my favorite thing. That's why I usually, with customers I work with, I use a dumbed down library where it's not like Joe Garcia's full suite. It's like 3 REST API calls, because the full documentation is amazing, and I give it to every customer. But really, for focused work in breaking it in between administrative and non-administrative retrievals, going into that code and being able to extract it, scaffold it into Postman is very, very natural process for a lot of development teams when they're working with APIs for the first time. It might not be Postman, it might be something else, but the code feature is absolutely incredible. Like, one of my favorite things of all time.
It's an example request. Interesting. Yeah, I'm seeing a couple like base URL here. No URL there.
That's because you got to go to the client and initialize your environment, and when you initialize the environment, it'll populate all that data.
Yeah. So here's PKI, right? It'll just prompt you for like your what private key do you want to use? So cool stuff. Lots of stuff out here. Go check it out. cybr.rocks/REST API is the ticket to that. So Todd, I know I promised you we're gonna get to your question. It was a doozy.
Todd's like, I got meetings to go to. Went to this thing 2 hours later after all the roast beef talk.
Hopefully he's still there. You can watch the recording. We're on 3 different streaming platforms. I'll do video on demand. I think he'll be all right. So we've got his question here for CP implementation. So we're talking credential provider agent based now. Do you typically recommend referencing both the primary and DR vaults, or a single vault only and abstracting it via a VIP in some fashion? This is challenging for us as we don't manage the target hosts and cannot quickly pivot. So I believe, and I don't know if you know the answer to this or not. Actually, you know what? We've got somebody waiting for us in the green room. So I told you he would be joining us in the second hour.
Strickland?
Joe Strickland, our solution architect, is in the green room. I'm going to bring him on in, and so we're going to turn this this wolf pack into 3 people here, and bring him. Maybe he has the answer that Todd Sherwin's looking for. So let's see, Joe.
Hello.
What's going on? And welcome to the party. We're already an hour in. We're warmed up and ready to go.
Perfect.
Answering questions. You can see I've got one from Todd Sherwin here already. We're talking, but we did a little introduction of Andrew and I and stuff a little bit earlier. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. I already told them how awesome you are, so you can skip that part.
Okay.
But like, when were you a customer before you came to CyberArk, or?
No, actually, before I joined CyberArk, I was doing a lot of implementation work for a VAR, not really related to privilege, more just general like IT system deployment, large scale Cisco, VMware, EMC, Dell, general system architecture type stuff. So yeah, but now I'm at CyberArk. I've been here about 4.5, 5 years now, and loving it. And I'm just reading the question. So
Yeah.
for CP implementations, do you typically referencing?
Yeah. So he's trying to come up with a strategy.
Right. So in this case, I mean, there's a couple of ways that I can immediately think to look at it. And if you spoke to someone from services, they may have a slightly different answer based on their consensus. But what I would normally refer to like a true disaster recovery event is I most likely don't want to be changing or rotating credentials while we're in DR. As failing back to my primary at that point, we now need to update everything that has changed on the primary vault during the period that it was down. So if your DR vault is truly just for those short circumstances when your primary vault goes offline, you can really just get away with pointing the credential, or excuse me, is this CP or CPM? I might be confused.
Oh, this is for the credential provider.
Credential provider. Okay, sorry. So in this case, I think when you deploy the credential provider, you can just in the Vault INI file point it at both vaults, separated by a comma, I believe, right? So in that case, you could point it at your primary vault and then add that comma in and point it at the DR vault. And what the credential provider should be smart enough to do is, if it's not able to reach your primary vault on that initial IP, it will then attempt to retrieve the credentials from your disaster recovery vault. As long as your credential provider cred file credentials have been syncing between your primary vault and your DR vault, then you shouldn't have any issues with that credential provider connecting to the DR vault after a failover. So I think that would probably be my recommendation, is just allow the credential provider via the Vault INI to redirect. The same with like the PSM or the Pvwa. You can set them both up as well to just redirect in the event of the primary vault going down.
Yeah, that is a, I guess you could call it a feature or whatever, or capability probably would be a better word. That's right. A capability of the vault.ini file that we use in order to define how to connect to the vault, over 1858, that private ARC protocol. Right. So that, the comma delimited was what I was thinking, but hearing you confirm it now makes me feel even better about saying it.
Perfect.
So yeah, just put both IP addresses, comma delimited, or more. If you have more than one DR vault, you can definitely keep adding on. It doesn't stop at 2, but it's going to be in the order that you want it to look up. So it's going to try the first IP address first. If it doesn't get anything back and times out there, it'll go to the second vault IP address it has, and so on until it finally gets a response back. Or at that point, it will just go ahead and error out and then write to the trace logs.
Right. And I think in this scenario, this is also assuming you're in a traditional active passive failover deployment and not like one of our highly available deployment models, which those have like read-only vaults that can actually be read from by credential providers. So if you've done a traditional like active passive vault failover, that's how I would do it. I mean, you could theoretically have a separate CCP pointed at your disaster recovery vault, but the cred files would get out of sync or CP. So I would just say, use the Vault INI, set up that secondary path and do it that way.
Cool. Awesome. Sorry, Todd, it took us so long to get to your answer, but we did. So yay us. So there is a couple comments that I just want to put up on the screen. Just for my mental note when I go back and I review this office hours and take a look at all the questions, or anybody else does, because I'm sure that all of these questions are questions that people internally here at CyberArk want to know, what are our customers asking? What do they need help with, and things like that. So we can start to address those. And this one from Vivek really stood out to me. Delete SSH keys doesn't work, and that's in regards to the REST API. So duly noted, Vivek. If you haven't already opened a support case for that, sounds like it's something that's relevant for one. I can definitely, raise awareness internally, but coming from a partner or a customer that this is happening has a lot more priority to it, I think is a good way of putting it. So
and this is only via the REST API, Joe?
This is I don't know, Vivek. Let us know if it's only the REST API or if.
And I guess what version are they on as well?
Okay, so Charles came back and said, yeah, so 12.2 and above delete is broken for SSH key platforms, but you can fire off an update account call and change platform, then delete it. So wait, that sounds like it's supposed to work that way, doesn't it? If there is an account that is using that platform, why would we allow you the capability of deleting it?
Or is he talking about key accounts assigned to the SSH key platform he's not able to delete?
Yeah, we'll need a little bit more information there. Maybe that's something that we can chat about in the community Slack channel that was shared earlier by SAC. Let me see if I can find that. That's up at the top here. Oh man, we've been talking about a lot. So SAC has this Slack group for CyberArk customers out there. If let's start up a conversation over there in that Slack group, cyberarkgroup.slack.com, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, and we'll be able to dive in and get some details onto that. Thanks, SAC, again for sharing that link with us and for the community. If you're still out there, hopefully you still are, but people got to work and stuff. So we do have a special request from the stream chat. This one specifically for Andrew Harris.
Oh, no.
Gary would like you to apologize for your Perl comment.
Nope, not going to happen. Stop using Perl. Sorry.
That's so
not
funny.
the first time we've been on this debate.
But no, so Charles said deleting the account is what he's talking about. So you
can delete it if you change the platform that it's associated to.
Yeah.
But you cannot delete it while it's associated with an SSH key platform.
Which is really weird.
Or a derivative of an SSH key platform, I'm assuming.
I would need to test that out. Like, can we even do that in the Pvwa, or is it just in the REST API? I would imagine it would be both, right? I mean, if our Pvwa uses the REST API, it'd have to affect it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you were right in your thinking. All right, so we'll take that offline and we'll kind of discuss it among us and stuff like that and see what we can come up with. If you haven't opened a support case for it already, please do, because things like this still need to go through the proper channels to get the proper eyes on it. And then we can kind of, massage it along internally now that we know about it from our angle. So thanks for that, Charles and Vivek, for bringing that up. We answered Todd's question an hour later than he probably wanted to, so that's good. Let's talk a little bit about generating reports again. This seems to be a question that keeps coming up here, and I think it's one that we can all talk about a little bit. The good news is that Joe has Conjure experience, more so than probably some of our solutions architects that are out there, because at one time Joe was selling Conjure.
I was. It was fun. At one time.
A long
time ago.
And he saw
a brief moment
and greener pastures and moved on. But you know what? I'll tell you this, Andrew. Joe has been doing some amazing things in Go. He's been developing in Go and creating
a real programming language, not like Perl.
No. Gary is seething right now. I
just chose it because that's what all the cool kids were doing at the time recently. So,
but you did a really good job, and you created a front end for our Skim API server, which I was very impressed. I was like, hey, give me some of those templates you're using over there, so that I can use it. It looks very beautiful. And he's been doing a great job with it and stuff. So
I'll have to use that. I'll have to test the account deletion of an SSH key via the Skim API to see if that works.
Well, that would be cool if it worked through there.
But behind the scenes it uses the REST API as well, so I can't understand how it would work. So we'll see. I'm going to do it and just let you guys know.
All right, cool. Well, while you think about that, I've got another question. This time from Kushik, and everybody who's on the stream too. We are taking these questions directly from the stream chat. So if you're on Twitch, you're on LinkedIn, you're on YouTube, it doesn't matter. We see it all. Go ahead and put your question into chat. We're down to about 4 questions in our pipeline right now, so we're going to be able to get to it before the end of the hour, unless Darren Kahn comes and doesn't, stop talking. But never know.
Derailment.
So he must be stuck on a customer call. But so this is add your questions into chat, and we'll get to them. I'll make sure to save them and shuffle them off to the side. I'm trying to get new people, not the same people over and over again. So new people out there, I see you out there. Start asking your questions. But
I'm so glad this question got asked. I'm such a fan of this question.
Let's read it. I haven't even had a chance to look at it yet. What would be an easy way to generate a report from Conjure to find orphaned secrets? He's using the synchronizer to sync secrets from CyberArk to Conjure, but sometimes they rename the object name and it then creates a new entry in Conjure. Mm-hmm. How can he continuously report on orphan secrets and remove it? I have a good idea, but I want to hear what Andrew and Joe have to say first. So go for it, guys. We'll start with Andrew. And then
okay. I was going to say, go ahead, Joe.
No, go ahead.
So I think what we found in a couple of customer projects that we had worked on, a former colleague of CyberArk, a good buddy, Andrew Copeland, and I did a little collaboration on it. I think he did most of it, but what we had to do was use an auditor role inside of the vault and make a comparison against what was happening inside of Conjure. So the only way that we found it was to create a hash table between the two and make a comparison and then perform an action. That was about almost 2 years ago, I think, where we kind of came up with this deletion process before things really kind of took hold internal to CyberArk. So what I would really, really recommend is, I don't think it does reports. We'd have to look at the documentation. But in the current new release of the synchronizer, I think 12.3 or higher, you can actually automatically enable that handling of orphan records, including the renames and basically everything that you're trying to do. So this is really just kind of a legacy problem that we've actually already gone through. So the only way that we found the most effective way is to not use Conjure, but to use an intermediary service that has the ability to see both sides of it. For obvious reasons, not the most ideal solution because you have privileged access on both sides of the fence. Yeah. So the synchronizer has, I do think it's 12.3. I don't remember which version, but the synchronizer has that feature now where it'll go through and automatically clean a lot of those records up. And it does create some audit trail entries in the synchronizer log to go through and remove those orphan records. But that one, that's a great question. I'm really glad that question got asked because I think we'll have a lot of legacy customers on there. So I'll flip it over to Mr. Strickland here and see if he has a different idea.
So I think I would probably go along the same route. I mean, this problem also can happen if you rename a object name and that account is associated with a platform for the reconcile account, it does not get updated. So a lot of times I tell folks that once the object name is set, we should not be just kind of willy-nilly modifying them, right? Yeah. There's a reason that we're using kind of an auto-generated structure in terms of the naming convention. Now, if they want to obviously come up with their own structure, that's fine. But once it's set, it's kind of one of those things I believe that we shouldn't be changing very frequently. It is the unique identifier for that account. And unfortunately, I think this is something I don't know if there is an enhancement request, but I just realized the other day that, hey, I updated an object name and then I had 3 platforms that account was associated as the reconcile account. They did an update. Now all of my accounts lost their reconcile accounts. We do a good job about updating direct matches in that sense. So like if you change an object name and it's directly mapped to an account, that one will actually get updated. But we don't do the platform. So it's kind of a similar issue. And I think my thoughts there are, one, let's get some, I think, good change management control in place so we're not just renaming this stuff. That should be something that we need to investigate or look at the dependencies that might be using it. There's multiple reasons, because if you're using traditional CP or CCP, that object name is important as part of your request a lot of times for retrieving the credential. So on the Conjure side, I wouldn't be able to give you a better answer, I think, than Andrew, other than doing like an audit, looking for that specific action. And I don't know if that action has a vault ID, or if you could set up a, say like your SIM output to look for this specific identification code. Do you know if there's a specific code that's for object renaming in the, out of that 0 to 999 codes that we can send out from a syslog point of view? Because if we could trigger at least an alert that, hey, this account's updated, somebody updated the object name, then you can at least check manually or trigger some sort of automation to check, oh, is that account in Conjure as well? So if it's one of those codes, that could be another method of doing some more proactive, like set up an alert, set that to go to your syslog system or whatever, trigger some sort of automation based on a specific code, and then have it do a poll against Conjure and a poll against the vault and update it that way. That could be one option. But I don't know, I find it, I have to look at exactly what the action is. I just did it in my lab. Let me check. I have it up. I can see what the words are, and I'll give them to you, Joe.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't really see anything right off the top of just searching object. So it might have a different name or something like that. If you want to see all the alert codes that get sent over to the SIM, they're actually called action codes. And you can go through and see all of them. There are so many of them, but you can then use this as a template to build off different alerts and things like that. So a really cool resource to have. That's just regular documentation out here in the administrator section of the Privileged Access Manager documentation. So that's what I was doing, just quickly looking and seeing what we send over to syslog there. But to kind of answer the question and finish up this question here so we can move on to the next one, I agree with both of you. I, for one, don't see a reason why you would want to change the object name. The only thing that I could think of, a reason why that I do it, is because I will onboard an account. It will take the standardized naming convention, and then for a demo, I want to make it something simple that I can just remember. So I make it one word or some sort of camel casing that I can then reference. However, when I was a customer and I was building automation against CyberArk, I really liked the standard naming convention because it gave me all of the information that I needed to be able to logically predict what the account did. And then I could also start to dynamically introduce values into building an object name that I may need and stuff like that, because each of the different bits of metadata of the account object is there available in that name for me. But I have used the it's called what is it, sync on update, or it's in the configuration of the Vault Conjure synchronizer in the newer versions, the deleting of and cleaning up of assets that no longer appear inside of the vault from Conjure. That is so worth upgrading your Vault Conjure synchronizer for. It works great. If you update that object name, that account object, according to the synchronizer, no longer exists. It will clean up the asset in Conjure. And vice versa. If you completely, if you've got provisioning, deprovisioning process, some sort of lifecycle management going on with a lot of these secrets and stuff that are being synchronized to Conjure, it'll help to keep it one-to-one with what it's seeing in the vault now. So it just sounds like, something that can be easily updated and starting to be used. By default, it will not be set to have that delete on sync or when it's not found type capability. You'll need to go into the config for the Vault Conjure synchronizer and flip that switch to true yourself in the text file, in the text config. But both great answers and great points. And man, I'm glad that that we're all here now and really attacking these goods. So there's your answer. Thank you for asking that on LinkedIn, Kushik. Let's go ahead and let's ask we're getting SIM specific questions, and I kind of want to get hit them while Joe's here and we have time and stuff, because I always get asked Skim questions on most of my REST API office hours that I do, but I don't have the specific experience with it to normally handle the questions. And so being able to utilize Joe while he's here would be great. So Adam on YouTube went ahead and asked if there's a place to see what actions there are with integrations with other products for the Skim. I guess he's looking to get a little bit more information on what can be done with our particular Skim server, the CyberArk one.
Yes. So there is some stuff in our public documentation. What I will say is the public documentation is going through a pretty major, I think, revamp, cleanup. Just like a lot of things, it's I would say a work in progress. I am working, and I actually told Joe I was going to send this to him last week, on a completed, updated Postman collection for the new Skim interface. I'm very, very close to having it done. I'm working on all the examples right now to make sure that you guys, whenever you're reviewing it, you have in the examples, you have some, working examples, some failing examples with proper headers and things like that, so that you'll be able to quickly see how the different commands and whatnot should be used. But at the basic level, the Skim interface works very similar, almost identical to the previous Skim server. So if you were familiar with the Skim server that was built for using Java, you had to download it and deploy it yourself. The 5 main things that you can do are user management. So adding users, updating users, like display names, making them active, making them inactive, that kind of stuff. Group management, so adding groups, deleting groups, adding users to groups, XYZ, that kind of stuff. Safe membership in Skim safes are containers. So managing containers in the sense of creating containers, deleting containers, but also creating or modifying container permissions. So giving a group the ability to, say, use accounts in that safe or container, but not delete those. That's all handled by the container permissions endpoint. And then the last endpoint is the privileged data endpoint, which is the endpoint that allows you to add or remove accounts, SSH keys, API keys, etc. Like I said, the public documentation does have some stuff. So Joe, if you go all the way to the bottom of this page and then hit that link right there. Yeah. This is where you'll find a lot of it. So if you scroll down a little.
Identity document.
Yeah, it's under the identity developer, because it's
gotcha.
The new Skim interface is hosted by the identity front end. So that's why you would find the documentation here. Now, the documentation, like I said, it needs a little bit of cleanup. But you can see on the left side of his page, there's the part about managing containers, container permissions, privileged data. The strange part on this for me is if you expand the link that's above the one you're in right now, Joe, this is where you'll find the information about users and groups, even though it shouldn't really be inbound provisioning, because we're provisioning inbound to Privileged Cloud or self-hosted PAM, but that's where you'll find that. So if you scroll down, you'll see some examples of like what you can do and whatnot.
Nice.
My goal is that you won't need to come to this to do any reference. The Postman collection, which Joe, I believe, is going to merge with his existing Postman collection that already has all of the commands for like the normal CyberArk REST API, as well as EPM and other utilities. It will have a folder for the new PAM Skim. So you'll be able to use the Postman collection and it'll be fully documented with examples and whatnot.
Awesome. That's great. I'm glad you're here.
Hopefully soon. I mean, I could probably give it to you now. I'm just kind of trying to get the last little bit, just right. And I'm kind of a perfectionist, or maybe it's OCD. It's one of those two things. I don't know. Maybe both.
So we've got a new question from someone on YouTube, Sam David, actually. He hasn't asked a question before, so this is a first-time question for him. And he's a noob in CyberArk. And he has a mentor, which is awesome. I didn't know we did that, or maybe that's just something they're doing in the company. But he's asking about OLAC, right? Object level access control. And I guess, oh, okay. So it's if object level access control is enabled and the dual control feature is applied to an object in CyberArk, that cannot be reversed. And he's looking for some clarity in that. And yeah, so if you checkmark object level access control, that is a safe parameter. It's a property on the safe. You are not reversing that. The only way is to recreate the safe, start to move your accounts over, and don't checkmark that again. Otherwise, you're stuck with the object level access control. The thing with object level access control that I was told, now this is hearsay here, and if you were watching, the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, you would know that objection very well. It happened a million times while I was watching it, at least. But if from what I was told, was that object level access control was something that was meant to only be used internally by our CPM. It was never meant to be exposed to customers. However, apparently back in the version 6 days, right, there was a particular customer who had a use case that needed very, very granular access controls on the account level, which is what that does. Basically, by check marking that, you're saying, all right, I don't want to do my permissions on the safe level anymore. I want to do it directly on every account that exists in this safe, whether you're allowed to retrieve, use, or list the account itself. I want to put those permissions on the account. What happened back then was, instead of the CPM being able to take a look at all of the safe's access control lists and understand what's authorized to access what, it would have to take it another level and start to dig through each individual account of the safe that has object level access control turned on, and it would kill our CPM. So we always took the stance of don't do it. And then around like 9.7, 9.8 of our PAS solution, we introduced CPM next gen, right? The NG CPM or whatever it was. And then it was kind of like, all right, you can kind of use object level access control, but the issue will always be one of the management overhead. And that's always the complaint that I've got. It looks good from a security perspective, but when you have to actually manage the access down to the account level for, hundreds of accounts or whatever the case may be, it is very aggravating to have to deal with it on that level.
5, 15, 50, 5,000, 50,000. No amount of the overhead that brings is going to completely detract from the value of doing object level access controls, and will always inherently create a worse security posture because of that management overhead.
From the dual control feature, perspective, that is, dual control is different from dual account. That dual control is the workflow process, right, Joe? Where I need access to an account and I need to go through potentially up to 2 different levels of access requests being granted for me to access the secret value or the password of an account, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, basically, dual control would give you that ability to do that multi-step approval workflow where certain users require an approval from somebody that's in either the authorized level 1 or the authorized level 2 group, or possibly somebody from both. Like if you wanted to do a dual step, and a lot of times I see that where someone in the security team is part of one of those levels, and then someone in the operations team is the other approver. And in that sense, you enable that, but you don't do that you actually enable it on a platform. Okay, so you would turn that on a platform like dual control. You would associate, so now you have an account associated with that platform. Then when you put that account into that safe with OLAC on it, you, at that point, at the safe level, you define people that are able to access accounts without going through dual control, or people that need to go through dual control, and then you also define the people in the different levels of authorization. That's basically, I don't see how the combination of having OLAC on and dual control at the same time would really mess anything up. But like you said, Joe, the one thing is once OLAC's enabled on a safe, yes, that is not reversible. And my normal recommendation is the same as that you just said, is do not do that, because like you said, if it's a very small environment and it looks great at first, it makes sense. But you quickly get to that area where now people have access to the safe, but like this user has access to one account and this user has access to another, but also with individual account permissions. And it just becomes very convoluted, and you get this like very hard to manage structure. And if you then go into like a very large environment, think about the old file system days where you could give someone access to a folder, but then you can have individual permissions on every single file in that folder. And you're like, oh, this person needs this. It just becomes very cumbersome and very difficult to manage it at the object level versus the non-object level, right? Like at the safe level or container level.
Yeah, and I could see how the it could be thought that like I think I understand where this is. So the dual account feature, when you're configuring a safe member, you're applying a safe member to a safe and you're scrolling through your different permissions. Well, no, that's for making it an approver of a level 1 or a level 2 request. So those are radio buttons, but those can just be inactivated by not applying that in the platform. You would never need to worry about that then.
Right. But dual control without OLAC enabled is great. You can have multiple levels of approval. Yeah. You would have like a security group that is your operational managers, then your security group, that's your security managers. Assign one to level 1 and one to level 2, and then you can enable that multi-level approval. Or if you just want to have one level of approval, assign 2 groups to that same level, and now anyone from either group can approve the person to check that out. Then if you check that last box, it will allow you to access those accounts without any approval. So if there are certain people that should be using those accounts without approval, then they would fall under that additional attribute.
Yeah. And, Rob on YouTube brings up a good point. If you need granular control for a few specific accounts, just create new safes for those. Like, don't.
You can have 30,000 or something per vault, so maybe even more, I think. So
you're not going to run out of room for. I mean,
lots of safes, little bit of credentials in each one, and then you can build an automation process around that. Find your patterns and scaffold and architect and sustain it.
Yeah, Andrew, that's like. Every time I start getting into this, if I'm doing a proof of concept or if I'm talking with customers, the thing that it all comes back to is like your change management process and your standardization, and coming up with a safe naming convention is extremely important. Mm-hmm. And I always say, like, it doesn't seem important at first, mm-hmm. but once you get into automation, having that nomenclature that says the first character is this based on geolocation, the second character is this based on system type, the third, and maybe it's the first 2, the second 2, whatever, however you decide. But coming up with that naming convention allows you to scale out rapidly in an automated fashion. And when you onboard a new user and they need their own personal safe, you've already got that naming convention defined. It just builds that safe for them, maybe using Skim, maybe using the REST API, maybe if you're still self-hosted using Packly, who knows? But there's so many ways you can automate that process.
Packly, don't.
Hey, maybe Cyber CLI.
2019 on stage at Impact. I said,
it's such an important concept because the reason I always like to look at it from 5, 15, 50, 5,000, 50,000 is because when you have that conversation, it's a heavy lift to do that for 5 applications. But you can't predict your growth, and it's silly to try to predict your growth and say, no, we're only going to serve Kubernetes. Well, then Jenkins CI/CD growth, and now you have hybrid with 30 different types of Kubernetes, and that's a hard conversation for 2 people to manage. And I can't overstate, and I agree with you fully. Coming up with that convention, while it seems silly, while you're really small, the more you grow, and putting up those guardrails protects you, the person on the ground, more than anything. It protects your cycles, because you never want to be the person that just gets hit up in DMs constantly on Teams. Hey, I need this. Hey, I need this. Hey, I need this. Hey, I need this. Because you're just going to quit. You're going to burn out. You're going to quit. I would. It's human to get to that point. So build an automated process around that standardization from day one. And while everybody will be mad at you, you'll provide the same SLA from day one that you will on day 365. And that's powerful, because now you can bring other people in and everything else like that. So it's a hidden element in maturity and understanding, getting to the end goal and then staying at the end goal and still performing. It's a great question.
That we offer, like, we actually have a training module on that specific topic of safe naming, safe nomenclature. It's in the PAM administration course. If you are a current customer and you haven't taken the course, but you want access to that specific module, just talk to your account executive or the sales engineer that's responsible. We're technically, we can't give it to you as a PowerPoint, but we can export it as a PDF and give it to you. But it gives you some great examples. And for that kind of use, like, it can give you a good kicking off point and get you going in terms of, like, how can you come up with this? Most of you guys probably have a nomenclature developed for your, like, host names. It's very similar to that, right? Let's come up with something where when we create a new safe, it's easily definable. We can look at it and know what it's for. We know what type of accounts are in it. We know the operating system, all that stuff. That's really what we're trying to get at here.
And when I talk to customers about it, I'm always very specific of, it doesn't need to fit the Conjure mold or the CP mold or the PAS mold. It needs to fit your enterprise mold. So whatever that is, let's go with that, right? And let's make it a standard that you can support and sustain internally. And we'll figure it out. There's enough API work out there. There's enough scripting to figure all that stuff out. But having the standard is more important than what the actual standard is.
Yep, I agree.
Awesome. Well, he's definitely got a lot more information than I'm sure he was expecting to get.
Yeah, welcome, Sam.
But that's all right. Welcome to CyberArk.
Yeah, it'll make sense. Just give it some time. It always seems overwhelming at first. Everything does, but the more that you practice and the more that you just keep coming back and listening, it'll start to click. As Adam Chandler in YouTube chat will probably tell you, he keeps coming back and he gets it. He understands it. So there's a great community out there. There's the CyberArk Slack channel. I don't know if you came on after we were talking about that, but there is a Slack group out there for CyberArk customers. In the first hour of this office hours, Zach was gracious enough to share the information with our LinkedIn crowd. So I'm sharing it with everyone here across LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch. CyberArkGroup.slack.com will get you into that Slack group where customers hang out and help each other. Partners hang out there. Customer success is out there. A lot of people out there to really help you on your journey.
Bring back Slack.
Yeah, I know. We don't get access to it, but you guys do. I think, Joe, you get access to it, right? I think the Windows laptops get access to Slack through the web.
I have the Slack app, I think. Still
on your laptop.
I mean, I did.
Let me see if I can get out CyberArk Group.
Oh, they deleted it.
No, I can get there.
But I used to have the actual application.
I think the web is open. I know it's still on. I can still get it.
Oh, shoot.
Methods.
Today I learned I can get to it through the web. Okay, well that works for me. All right, let's see what other questions we have. We've got an API question from Alex out on YouTube that we'll get to. A couple other. We've got a question for. Well, we've got 15 minutes left. I don't know if I want to give Ben a second question. I think he's just with a Stump Andrew game.
Nah, we can skip Ben Floyd. He's had enough.
We did get an anonymous LinkedIn user gave us this question about an hour and a half ago. Hopefully he's still out there and stuff. I'm always happy to answer this question because I get it, right? I will get it. And I may even know who this is just based on the question itself, because I feel like this question was asked on the CyberArk Commons website that we have out there. So if nobody's familiar, there is this place called CyberArk Commons, and it's got a discussion board out there. And it's mainly focused on open source stuff, but it also has some like Conjure Enterprise talk that's out there. And this question came up, and I thought I answered it. And maybe it's somebody else. Here it is. Credentials for summon using Conjure, Etsy Conjure.identity. So this was from Senko. And we definitely, I gave him a nice thorough answer, as you can see. I love typing a lot. But we can answer it again for everyone else who's not out there at discuss.cyberarkcommons.org. So alternatives to improve app authentication by eliminating the hard-coded API keys in Etsy Conjure.identity. I think that's just basically all our authenticators at this point would do that. That's a very legacy way of handling the identity. Sometimes you can't get away from using a username and an API key. But
true.
Where we can, we try to integrate with the different platforms that are available. So not Ansible open source, right? That's just a CLI and an engine that we're working with. Not much we can do there, so still need that Conjure.identity. But Ansible automation platform, which Red Hat Summit's happening right now, if you've been attending that remotely, you'll see the automation platform that they have now. We are embedded in there, so we can bring secrets directly in. You don't need to install anything. Jenkins uses our JWT authenticator now. You install our plugin and it activates a JWT feature that is not really present in Jenkins until you install our Conjure Secrets plugin. And then we can use that JSON web token that's generated for each job in order to authenticate you to get secrets. So no Conjure identity needed there. AWS services utilize the AWS IAM role. Azure uses the internal metadata service to generate a JWT, as well as Google Cloud Platform does the same. We have authenticators for both of them.
Or just use JWT.
Yeah, or just use JWT, but we've got the specific authenticators that will basically validate without you needing to set up and configure a JSON web key set UI for us to validate the JWT for. We will use the Google metadata service or the Azure metadata service to do that validation for you. So it's already kind of a little bit more integrated than our JWT authentication. Kubernetes platforms, right? OpenShift, Rancher, Kubernetes, all those different flavors. We utilize the attributes of the environment that the application lives in order to do authentication there. So we don't require any real API key for that as well. We're going to use the pod IP, the pod name, the namespace, all of these different attributes of where the application lives. And then we're going to confirm all that against the platform API. So we're seeing a move from where we used to be, where we were definitely reliant a lot more on the username or host ID and the API key being stored in this Conjure identity file, to where now we're starting to work even closer with a lot of these vendors who happen to be our C-Cubed Alliance partners in building very strong workload authentication and attribute-based authentication techniques that, most of the major products now, you can go to, I got my screen sharing over here, you can go to docs.cyberark.com and take a look at all the authenticators under our Conjure Secrets Manager in the integration section and see authenticators here. Azure JWT, that supports GitLab, Jenkins, anything that can generate a JWT, we can authenticate based off of claims that are included on there. Kubernetes, LDAP authentication, we can do, LDAP based authentication. OIDC, if you're trying to create some sort of self-service portal with a social login, we'll be able to utilize OIDC in order to authenticate a nickname or whatever other claim on that OIDC token, the JWT token that's created, and give them access to, secrets that they need. Maybe it's just a web front end that needs access to a database backend and you want to use it on a per user basis. A lot of different options to do. Always, we've got different booths at all the good different conferences this year. So come and check us out and ask questions. Did I miss anything? I don't think I missed anything though.
I think you covered it, man. You got all of them.
I do this a lot, and we're getting.
Hello, Joe. You should do this for a living.
I should, right? Imagine the money I could make. So I think I lost YouTube chat going down that dark hole of authenticators and stuff, but it's okay. We'll bring them back. So here's a good question. And I don't know if we can talk about this or not, but I think if anybody has this the answer to this question, it'll be Joe Strickland. Joe, do you know if U2F auth is going to ever be supported on the PVWA? Isn't that something that identity can do?
So
I know U2F, right?
expand on U2F. I don't know if I'm fully clear on what you're looking for.
U2F authentication. Here, I'll share my screen out again. So it's FIDO U2F, like YubiKey. Right?
Oh, so I mean, so right now YubiKey, we have integrations with them, but it leverages PKI, right? Which is pain in the butt, right? So you can use YubiKeys via PKI to authenticate to PVWA. However, in the future, and I will say that this is mostly for folks looking at our SaaS offering, we will support universal second factor based on what we call our shared services platform. So part of our front end for authenticating into CyberArk is going to be driven based on our identity platform, and the identity platform supports like everything: OIDC, OAuth, FIDO2, Radius, internal Radius servers, external Radius servers, various types of directories, Azure, Google Cloud directory, AWS directories, all that, right, goes behind it. In this case, because our SaaS front end will be, or the SaaS offering will have the identity shared services portal as the method of authentication, you will get access to all those different authentication methods inherently. What's going on behind the scenes, as far as I'm aware, is the identity portal is using OIDC to authenticate to actually like CyberArk Privileged Cloud. And it's just really offloading the authentication from your traditional PVWA authentication method. With that in mind, or with that being said, I am not clear on if the traditional PVWA authentication methods will receive continued development in terms of like adding FIDO2 support directly to the PVWA. And where this comes into play is for customers that are maybe like yourself, I'm not sure, managing your own environment, doing a traditional self-hosted CyberArk infrastructure. So that is something that I would need to probably take back to product management R&D, and that's something that Joe, maybe we can put in the minutes or the notes, whatever we're doing with these questions, is ask this kind of question, because I've had similar questions, not just related to like FIDO2 or U2F, but also just things like right now, PVWA, if you wanted to do a challenge workflow like a LDAP as your first method of authentication and then Radius as your second, you would need to rely on your Radius server to support that. The actual authentication flow, like that authent, we can't do that with just PVWA alone, which we probably should be able to. I mean, in my head, I think that we should. It seems fairly straightforward, but we've always relied on like the Radius server to handle that authentication flow in the past. So that is a good question. I think we need to ask product management on, with the advent of our shared services platform coming out for a lot of our SaaS offerings and other components, is that going to give us the ability? I know it will give it for most of our products, but with customers like yourself that are still self-hosted, how are we going to provide that support for you?
Awesome. Very, very thorough answer.
Unfortunately, I don't have a solid black and white answer. It's kind of a gray answer, in my opinion. I would love to be able to say,
hey, everybody should know at the beginning, I said, this is not CyberArk sponsored. This is totally a bunch of dudes hanging out and engineering solutions and answering questions, having fun. And we may not have the answers. The answer may be open a support case, open an enhancement request. And that's all we can give you. We're not going to overstep our bounds here and try to solve everything if we can't, we don't know everything. That's why we've got a great community and great backup too. That we can't get everybody on this one office hour. So maybe we'll bring in somebody from the identity side next time if that's something people are interested in talking about. Now I do remember, and I don't know if maybe Joe, if you know anything about this, back in, like 2017, when I was making my transition from customer success over to becoming a real boy SE, I was going to Black Hat a lot because I needed to get, my demo juices flowing and stuff. And Marino loves throwing the new SEs into the fire at Black Hat on the show floor doing demos. And Yubico was there with their own booth, and I actually happened to get a YubiKey from them for free. But what I found out was when I set it up and tried to authenticate to the Pvwa with it, the one-time passcode that YubiKey generates was too long to be accepted by our login. Do you know if that's still? So I did get it to work by using the Piv factor of the key and basically presenting doing a PKI type of authentication.
I would have to check. I mean, we could. So the code was too long. The
CCCCC and then a whole bunch of random stuff that generates anytime you accidentally touch it, and you always get it in Slack.
Yeah, I would have to check if that's still an issue. I mean, I haven't set it up. I know that the traditional YubiKey integration requires PKI, which in my home lab, I did not go through the process of getting that all set up and whatnot. I've done that before back when I used to support the federal government, and that was not fun then. So I kind of shied away. But I would want to check on that in that sense, Joe.
I'm on their website. I just Googled it real quick out of the blue, and it looks like we have a legit page on their website about how they work with us and oh, it's Piv compatible smart card. That's what it is. Okay. So yeah, it looks like it's still just the Piv factor of the YubiKey. So you would load the private key, just like a Piv or CAT card in the military. You load your user certificate private key into that factor, and then by tapping it, it would present that private key for your authentication and stuff. So at least it works. I love PKI authentication personally. So I find that acceptable. I think that just some people like to use the native one-time passcode that YubiKey would create.
Right.
So
I mean, I think
what
you're going with, I find PKI, most large organizations, PKI should be fine, but at the same time, if you don't have it set up, you probably don't want to go through it just for your multi-factor for CyberArk.
It could also be that that Adam is just trying to troll us and ask us questions to try and stump us, because he's been doing that since we started the stream. So if I scroll up to the very first comment he made, I know Adam outside of this, so I can kind of do this. He's one of my favorite customers. But who in their right mind streams in 720p in 2022?
Yeah, man.
This guy, when he forgets to change it to 1080p and can't stop the stream to change it. So he
platform
came right before we even started already, firing shots over the bow. So we love him though. He's always got great questions too. Even if he already knows the answer, he knows the right questions to ask to get the community involved and get the answers out to the community and stuff. So definitely appreciate that support from him. Looks like we did have a question asked by Alex about the Safe API update. And he's trying to just really only need to update the description, but finding that he needs to pull all the attributes and then update the description field alongside all of the attributes again. And I was going to be prepared to answer this question, Alex out there on YouTube. But then he kind of replied back and he was like, you know what? I'm going to go and use PS Pete instead of you, Joe. I like PS Pete a lot more and his PS Pass PowerShell script. So I'm going to go out there and use it. And I'm going to teach everybody who's hanging out with us right now, still on the streams everywhere, a little trick that I don't think many people know about. Most people will just import the module through PowerShell Gallery for PS Pass. But Mark is here. Mark, where's my t-shirt? We were talking about my t-shirt earlier, the CyberArk shirt from the race. So Mark Herder's here. But back to what I was talking about. If I share out my screen here, PS Pete made a website. It's pspaz.pspete.dev and dedicated to PS Paz, and you can go and you can see all of the different commands that are available. He's got them listed over here. Each one of them has multiple examples, really. all of your different examples, all the different parameters, description of the parameters, pretty, syntax highlighting. So he's done a really good job of getting this created and set up. Go sponsor him on GitHub. I'm sponsoring him. I shoot him, a couple bucks a month through GitHub sponsorship and stuff. I really love what he does for the community and for me, really, simplifying all of the PowerShell stuff that we do. But we've got Gary Moon out there still heckling Andrew Harris's earlier Perl comment. Perl is greater than PowerShell. I honestly, I don't know Perl, so I don't have a dog in this fight, but we're
There's more
I would say that this
that can be said.
I don't see how Perl is greater than PowerShell, but I would say this amount of effort that PowerShell P puts into this website, I mean, that's definitely a labor of love right there, because it takes a lot of time to get
PSP
documentation
rules.
correct, as we can see by some companies.
Yeah. Well, so we're at the top of the hour. This was scheduled to run for about 2 hours. Yeah, we can go over a couple minutes and stuff like that. It doesn't matter. But I do want to kind of wrap things up. So we hit all the questions that came in for the most part. I think there was Ben's stumper question for Andrew that we kind of bypassed because Andrew's still beaten and bruised over Perl and this Gary heckling.
That first one wasn't bad. The first question. What was Ben's second question? Curiosity.
Geez, I just kind of unhearted it. Let me see if I can come up. I think this is it. Does Conjure reduce the entry barrier for multi? It's probably a very good softball setup here for me to really pitch hardcore Conjure secrets management, multi-cloud type scenarios and stuff. But there are customers out there that had real questions. So, so it a time broker. I don't know if I would necessarily call it a time broker across clouds to interact with native secrets management solutions. However, there is if you're going to CyberArk Impact this year, which hopefully everyone on this stream is, we will have a breakout session as well as Discovery Center booths dedicated to a new solution we will be announcing at Impact called Secrets Hub, which in fact will be able to integrate directly with cloud native secrets managers, starting with the AWS Secrets Manager. So we'll be able to synchronize secrets from our vault in the cloud, not to Conjure, but directly into AWS Secrets Manager and start to feed those AWS services that they will not expose to third parties or, like Conjure, in order for us to be able to manage and deliver to.
From truth to authority.
Now, on the roadmap, I can talk about, we do have Azure and then GCP on the roadmap to deal with those timelines. I cannot give you any information on that. All I can say is come to Impact, whether it's virtual or in person. We'll be in Boston. I'll be in Boston. Come say hi to me. I'm sure I'll have stickers or other goodies. I think I'll have a big face of me too. I'm going to slap on all the different Discovery Center booths that I have to work and stuff. So you'll be able to find me from my face. And we'll have a good time. We'll hang out. We'll have some waters. I don't drink anymore. I gave that up. So I'll be drinking the Shirley Temples actually is my drink. Joe, you were there with me in
Boston.
We were in Boston, and I got pretty Shirley Temple wasted. Sick to my stomach really from all the sugar.
Chocolate wasted, huh?
I was out late too. So I was still out. I was still one of the last people out with everyone, holding down fort on my sugar rush. It was
10:15, 10:30.
Oh man, I didn't know. I didn't see an email, but Adam Chandler in YouTube chat mentioned that the Impact registration is now open. Let's see.
Wow.
.com/impact. Wow, it is. You got 62 days until Impact and 23 hours and stuff. So like 64-ish days. But you can
waiting on that.
Oh, there's an agenda. I don't even know like what talks were accepted or anything.
Joe, you're going to find out your talks on this agenda probably.
Nah, it's not.
Yeah. Do they have any of the talks up there?
I know the talks and I know what I submitted, and none of mine were accepted.
Do you know if anybody else's were? Well, we should probably take that offline. Never mind.
Yeah.
Hey, are we all traveling there or not?
Well, so I can't. I don't want to talk about it on the stream now, but I can say that that we are we're going to have a lot more customer submitted talks. So there are customers that are going to be holding breakout sessions and stuff. So we really limited what the CyberArk internal employees are going to be talking to. I think we only really got like 22 or 24 different breakout sessions that CyberArk employees are doing. And then a lot was reserved for customer stories and customer breakout sessions and things like that. So we're starting to open up the event to more customer-centric speaking spots and stuff, which I really like. I feel like that's how it should be. Like the employees should be competing with the customers, and we all do a call for papers to impact. And then we're all on the same level, playing field. PM can have their new product announcement breakout. That's just to give me, but like, I want to be included in the same, decision pool as, Adam or as other people in the community. Kevin Elwell is a great partner that we have, who has a lot of great things I'm sure, he needs to talk about. So, so Mark and I are apparently twins right now with our Kubernetes Secrets shirts. Everybody's got one except for Andrew Harris right now. So go out to cyberark.com or impact.cyberark.com and register for Impact. As you can see, 12th, 13th, 14th, 3 whole days of fun. I'm sure Monday will be a training day for free if you go ahead and register for the in-person. I don't know that we'll be doing that virtual this year. But with that, any closing notes from either of you guys? Any upcoming projects that you guys are going to make public or that you want to talk about? Andrew, starting with you. Any policy automation for Conjure you want to talk about?
None that I would think that I'm necessarily allowed to disclose, other than there's some really exciting things from the Conjure operational side that is very transformative in the space. So hopefully, I think over the next couple months, we'll see some really, 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 really good things.
Awesome. Joe, what about you? Anything you're going to be giving me? Hopefully, this Skim API collection and stuff like that. So
yeah, so I think trying to get you access to the Skim API collection, that's definitely on the roadmap really soon. And just like when I first joined, someone was asking the question about the not being able to delete an account that is an SSH key. Mm-hmm. So I've been trying it. I can't do it via Skim either. I just get a 401 unauthorized error, no response. I have been even trying to patch it and change the platform type, but it's not letting me. So it's funny. I'm going to keep investigating that. But I'm glad someone pointed that out. I think it's pretty unique. But really, I think I'm going to publish that. On my GitHub, I have some examples of Golang or Go-based Conjure authentication. I know, Joe, I shared some of that with you. So for like, if you wanted to write a Lambda function or run something in EC2 and use the STS service in Go, so I wrote that. So you can, it leverages the OAuth package that is publicly available. But I don't know. I don't have any major projects other than I'm just really trying to dig into this Skim stuff and learn more about it and that's help it improve.
We've got, like I said, typically I get a lot of those questions. Now, what's going to end up happening is this is going to go onto a video on demand, and people are going to come and start to see it on their own time, and they're going to see that Joe Strickland was there and he knows the Skim stuff. And so next office hours, it's going to be nothing but Skim questions, and then you're going to.
That's fine with me.
For them all.
That's all right. That's fine with me. Yeah.
You're required next time now to answer all the Skim questions that are going to come.
Perfect.
Cool. So from my side of the house, everybody go out to github.com/infamous Joe G. Take a look at all my repositories and projects that are out there. I've got a couple that are pinned down here that are helpful. The CyberArk Automation Greatest Hits is a gist of a curated list of all the available resources to help get you started in CyberArk Automation today. You can take a look at how in PowerShell you can protect credentials that are retrieved using our CP or CCP, and how you can introduce those just in time in an ephemeral fashion into your scripts. I also have some open source projects out there that I can't not talk about. Conceal is an awesome little tool for your local development to use your local keyring or Windows Credential Manager to store your secrets and retrieve them just in time as needed. The Cyber CLI is one that I think Andrew, you use the Cyber CLI to some degree. I don't know, Joe, have you tried the Cyber CLI at all?
I haven't dug into it all the way yet, but I do plan to.
That's my baby. Cyber CLI is my baby. That's a CLI that works with PAS, CEM, Conjure, and we introduced support as well for one other thing, and I forget what it was. What was that support for? Let me look at the reading.
Was it CEM?
Oh, CCP, CEM.
And I think I gave you the Go package for Skim,
That's
so you could integrate.
I was thinking, yes,
that as well.
The next update will introduce the Skim capabilities into the CLI, and then this cool little Go key config package is one that I recently did that I'm pretty proud of, but I don't think it's relevant to anyone on the call unless you're looking to store, plain text config files inside of key stores. If you're holding any secrets in there, anything like that, cool little package you can just come in and get. So that's it for the questions. Any questions you do have that didn't get answered, please go ahead and save them for next time. We'll try to do another one in another month. Or so, maybe sooner, depending on how everything goes. While you're out there browsing the internet, go ahead, shoot on over to youtube.com/infamousjoeg. You can rewatch this if you want to take a look at any of the answers. If you missed the first hour and you want to go take a look back, there's Joe and Andrew. Look at them beautiful faces already ready to go. You can check out some YouTube videos on the central credential provider, how to configure it, how to integrate with Tower, or now what's called Ansible Automation Platform. Or just check out my whole playlist of CyberArk videos. This is curated from everybody who puts a video on YouTube, and I collect it here. So you can scroll through and look for something that's relevant for you and watch until your heart's content. So a whole slew of resources out there for you to go use. And until next time, I want to thank Joe and Andrew, both of you, for coming on. Andrew hung out the whole 2 hours with me. Joe, you had other duties, which is fine. Well, you're excused, but thanks for coming by. We didn't have time for Darren, so we're going to push him till next time. So sorry, Darren, you're stuck in the green room. No, I'm kidding. I'm doing like a Conan bit with what's his face.
Did he join the green room?
Damon, right? Like he could never get to Matt Damon. Anyways,
did he ever join at all?
Darren didn't join. He's stuck on a customer call gone awry. So that'll happen. Thoughts and prayers to Darren that he'll make it through this Thursday. For the rest of you, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy Friday. Enjoy the weekend, and we will come back and talk soon and answer all your questions again. Thanks for hanging out, and good night, everybody.
Awesome.
Have a good day.
Thank you.